Welcome aboard. It's Captain G with another update to our Global War 1939 Ultra playtest. All right, so I'm back, and it looks like Eggman and I will be starting the Allied turn this evening. So I wanted to recap quickly on the builds, both the Axis build that happened in Germany and Japan 3 that you've probably already watched, and the planned Allied build. So Germany built one of their elite SS infantry, two of their Panzer Grenadiers, and we've talked about those units already. He built 5 regular infantry, 2 Panzer III tanks, and we talked about the German tanks last time, 2 regular artillery, a new minor industrial complex, which he put in Hungary, and he paid off the 6 damage the British had done on turn 1 at the Paris industrial complex, so he could produce there. Japan purchased 2 SNLF, which is the max per turn they could build, 1 light tank, 1 medium tank. They built another medium bomber, so that gives them 2 medium bombers. They bought a light industrial complex, which they put in Siam, and they built a military base that they put in, I want to say North Vietnam, but whatever, Cochin, China, whatever it's that territory is called. For the Allies, Soviets are going to build 2 of their elite infantry, their guards infantry, that cost 3 each. They get +1 on attack and defense in Mother Russia, and they can also be dropped in airborne assault if the Soviets decide to use them. They're building a fortification. They're building 2 regular infantry and an artillery with their income. CCP is building with their income just 2 infantry. For the Commonwealth, last time we talked about all the different variety of tanks. So let me take a moment to talk about the variety of armor available to the British Commonwealth in this game. So you have the light armor. The green tip is the light armor. Attacks and defends at a 4. Then you have your regular medium armor, attacks and defends at a 6. Then I'm using a tank destroyer sculpt until I can get the proper one painted, but this would be a Churchill tank for 6, the same price as a medium armor. It attacks at a 6, defends at an 8, but it's limited only 1 per turn. So you still need these to field out your artillery, or your armor force, because you can only build 1 of these per turn. This is the Firefly, so I'm using a out-of-the-box Sherman Sculpt, which is appropriate because the Firefly tanks were the export version of the Sherman that we gave to the British. And I think this is a 7 attack, 7 defense. And this is our version of the British heavy tank, the Comet, which I believe is 8 attack, 8 defense, but room to be corrected based on I guess Triple Crown corrected me. So those are the variety of tanks, and with that, you'll see that the British intend on round 3, now that this is available. These aren't available till later in the game. So now that it's round 3, they're building their 1 per turn Churchill tank for North Africa. They're building the 2 commandos. They're building in South Africa 1 infantry. In Far East Command, Hawker Hurricane, just a regular fighter, same as in Anzac, and they're building an air base in Gibraltar. Canada's building a destroyer and saving some IPP. South Africa did not build anything last time, so they're building a medium armor this time. The FEC is building the 3 infantry, 1 regular medium armor. They're building a fortification and a coastal artillery, coastal gun. And Anzac is building Z-Force infantry with the blue base, a regular infantry, a coastal gun, and a destroyer. So that's the Commonwealth. The US, we're going to give this a try. Don't know if I'd ordinarily do it, but I want to see how it works. The US is going to send 20 IPP to the UK in Lend-Lease. I think Triple Crown talked about the Lend-Lease rule changes on his video. They're also buying a light armor Lend-Lease to the KMT, and that leaves them enough for 1 infantry, and I think they have 2 IPP remaining, so they're going to put that infantry in the Philippines. And the KMT, besides receiving that tank, they're just building 4 infantry. So those are all the builds we have planned. Making my final notes for my combat, and Eggman and I expect to be able to get the Allied turn in tonight, possibly Italy, and start Germany, Japan as well. We'll play that by ear, but hopefully we'll post this and the Allied turn. This is Captain G for Eggman, over and out. Welcome aboard, it's Captain G with the Allied turn 3. So I just showed you the buys. Let me just recap and talk about the combat, non-combat moves for the Allies. So in the Soviet Union, Stalin has decided not to continue to bleed himself in the Winter War, and there was a lot of reshuffling and stabilizing their forces. One thing that they did do that I wanted to play out, let me get my pointer, I'm sorry, is they built a fortification in Karelia. My thoughts on that were secure the northern flank. Fortification in Leningrad, fortification in Karelia. Those 2 territories block off Finland. And if I build up sufficient forces in the 28th and the 8th armies up here in these 2 territories, I can kind of hold the Germans at bay. Meanwhile, I'm starting to send my mobile forces and other forces down here in the south. The way the map works, and I remember this from playing a couple of years ago when we played this, from here, from Romania, you can go into western Ukraine and then blitz right into here, and you're on the doorstep to Moscow. So on the frontier, you know, Germany has that blitzkrieg move. So putting the 5th Shock Army here with all of our fast movers is a bit of a risk. We may move that back one, but for the southern flank, we're probably going to build a fortification here. But if we keep spending money on fortification at 15 a pop, then we lose the opportunity to build 5 infantry in lieu of those fortifications. But with the minus on the attack and the plus on the defense, I want to give it a shot, and we'll see how it goes. So that's all the Soviets did. Realigned some of their air forces, moved some of their ground forces around to prepare for the coming invasion. CCP brought most of their force back now that the Japanese have landed a large force here. Moved one force up to grab an IPP and forced the Japanese to split up, and then pulled the rest back. KMT out of turn, but basically KMT, seeing what's arrayed in front of them, know they cannot defend this, so they want to preserve their forces and pull back. And it didn't coordinate well with the U.S., so the U.S. still Lend-Leased an armor, but that armor's not going to survive. So after the Soviet turn was the British Commonwealth. They did 2 combat attacks. One was clearing this box, this coastal convoy box from the German cruiser. So that was successful. The Swordfish, the attack bomber, and the destroyer coming off the coast of West Africa, all 2 out of the 3 got hits, and the cruiser missed. So that was a successful attack. And the other one was, rather than send the South African up to Gibraltar, walked into this territory because the Vichy are frozen. They can't do anything. So what the British did was they used their one slot open on the transport to bring up the Liberian. So now sitting in Gibraltar are 4 British infantry, 1 Canadian infantry, 1 Liberian infantry, 1 French infantry, and 1 French artillery. The British built an air base. They already have the military base. They have their fortification and their coastal gun and a port. And they flew down from Nova Scotia and from London 2 fighters to Rio de Oro, which next time will land in Gibraltar. So this will seem to be fly further south, land in Africa, then fly up to Gibraltar. So we can reinforce this and hold on to Gibraltar. Whenever Eggman plays the Axis, it's #1 priority for him is to secure the Med. So Italy is coming after Gibraltar and Cairo equally importantly. So I've known that since the beginning. The other thing they did was fortify all their forces here in the British 8th Army with the new builds. They flew the bombers in from Gibraltar, and these 2 fighters, one was on the fleet, which pulled back, and one flew over from India. And then this fleet and the escort carrier met up here off the coast of Italian Somaliland. So my intent is with this transport that came down from West Africa, it can move 3. So it should be able to go 1, 2, 3, and then using the port 1, 2, 3. So if I have 2 transports shuttling those back and forth, I should be able to get a constant flow of 2 infantry every turn. South Africa can produce 1, the British can produce 1, so I can constantly send up 2 infantry up here if I wanted to reinforce Gibraltar, because the transports here then could pick up those infantry without even moving. So that's my intent. I got to double check the rules on Free French transports and their ability to shuck Commonwealth troops, but if they can't, then I'll just send in another British Commonwealth transport. And then here, trying a new strategy, which is defending the islands. Placed a coastal gun on Celebes. They put their fortification on Sumatra. They reinforced it with anti-air, 2 infantry, plus the 2 that were there, and the coastal gun that was already there. They're reinforcing Singapore, but I'm not sure how much more I'm going to be sending troops to Singapore, because now with this force and Japan knowing that they'll be able to pretty much mop up China, and Germany's going to be going into the Soviet Union, I expect Japan to be turned loose here fairly soon. Maybe, oh, what a mess. Maybe next turn, maybe the turn after. I'll have to keep my fingers crossed. But I expect he's coming soon, so I got to reinforce Calcutta. And then the U.S. just built an infantry in the Philippines, and as we said, the light armor for the KMT. Both the U.S. and the Soviets rolled a 14 on their income increases. So U.S. is sitting at 43. They're about halfway there. Russia's at 35, which tells me Germany's coming very soon. And with that, for Eggman, I'm Captain G. Over and out. One last point I forgot to make on the video. I wanted to add this at the end. So the U.S. experimented with sending 20 IPP to Great Britain. Triple Crown talked about this rule modification where the U.S. does not have to be at war, but can only send it to a country that is at war. In this case, it's just Britain. So Germany rolled a 4 in their interdiction, and that meant half the money went through, half the money was sunk to the bottom of the Atlantic and went to the bank. So We did succeed in sending 10 IPP to England to help them in their war effort, but it cost the U.S. 10 extra. Thanks.